In this video, I'm going to explain to you why you're safer as an American in Mexico than you are in the USA. Mexico is a top destination in the world, and many people ask, are Americans safe there? On this channel, I get so many comments about people saying that you'll get murdered, kidnapped, or there's a ton of violence in Mexico. But let's be real, that can be further from the truth. I'm a Canadian that lives in Mexico, and I actually feel safer in Mexico City than I do in Toronto. Homelessness and drug use in Toronto is out of control. I've seen a few dangerous situations in Toronto. One example, somebody was acting like a samurai, or they thought they were a samurai, and they were in the middle of the street. And this was like at 8 o'clock at night. There were a lot of people around. They were in the middle of the street, stopped traffic, and some woman was going to turn the other woman into sushi, just to say the least. I mean, I can't really talk about the specifics, I guess, but it was intense. And there's other stories that I have. That's for another day. I've never felt threatened or in danger in Mexico City. And Mexico City is the biggest city in North America. It's huge. There's a lot of people here. And the problem with homelessness and open drug use is not even close to even Canada. I can't even imagine comparing it to some places in the US. I walk around freely here. I use public transit. I drive, and I feel very safe. So stop spreading rumors. On the other hand, I don't dress and wear jewelry and be all flashy. And I don't go to crazy, dangerous areas where I'm not supposed to be. In 2003, 36.7 million Americans visited Mexico. And Americans make up a big portion of the visitors to Mexico. They mostly visit popular beach areas or places like Mexico City, big cities like Mexico City. And some Americans even choose to live here. But if you ask the majority of Americans that actually live here or visit here, they'll tell you that they feel pretty safe. Violence against Americans in Mexico is very rare. In 2021, 75 Americans were murdered, which is a very small percentage of who actually visits. That's 0.26 out of 100,000 visitors. And if you compare that to the American murder rate, America's murder rate is 6.81 out of 100,000 people. That's a big difference. The media often spreads a lot of fear, and they've been doing it for a very long time. It's deeply rooted in America to spread fear about Mexicans. It stems from a long history of stereotyping and racism. This fear-mongering has caused unnecessary panic. And to tell you the truth, your news media in America doesn't have to tell you the truth. They can lie, and it's completely legal. And that's what they do. In the US, guns are ingrained into the culture, into everyday life. The USA has some of the highest gun rate ownerships in the world. 120 guns to 100 people. That's mental. Mass shootings are a regular occurrence. There were 647 mass shootings in 2022 alone. So gun violence in America is a safety issue. It's a big safety issue. Compared to Mexico, Mexico has very strict gun laws. You have to be military or police to carry your gun in public. Otherwise, you're not allowed. Mexico has its own violence, but it's not from the public owning guns like America. The risk in Mexico is far less linked to random violence than the US. Some people think that once they land in Mexico, it's just like a war zone. They're just in danger right away, which is far from the truth. This is over-exaggerated and it's way too common of a thought. Most violence is between gangs or locals, not tourists. You're pretty safe if you stick to, non-legal activities while you're visiting Mexico or living in Mexico. If you break the laws or ignore the laws, you're not immune to the consequences. I've seen it in other countries where people think they can break the law and maybe, oh, don't worry, I'll get out of it by bribing an officer or something like that. It doesn't work in Mexico. You don't want to try that. Respect the place, the people, and the country, and you'll be just fine. If you act like you own the place, then you might be at risk. Just saying. Now, saying that, I know there are a select few that are very unlucky, and it's horrible. It's a horrible thing. But some people get very unlucky, and you can get unlucky in your own country, no matter where you're from. Some safety tips to keep safe: stay away from dangerous areas, because just like anywhere else in the world, Mexico does have dangerous areas. Don't flash expensive jewelry or your phone or whatever in public. I mean, if you're showing off, you're asking for a robbery, really. But even still, you can wear jewelry in Mexico City and no one's gonna bother you for it unless you go down some, sketchy alleyway or you're in some neighborhood that you're not supposed to be in. When you're out at night, stick to well-known areas and be aware of your surroundings. Use trusted taxi services, Uber, public transit. Try to avoid potential scams. But that's not always easy. It could happen. You can ask locals, expats, or travelers that have been here before where to go and what to do. There's Facebook groups that actually have people that will help you do these things. And there's other groups out there on the internet. You can find a lot of information. And just use common sense. If something doesn't feel right, trust your gut. And Mexicans are some of the most friendliest people. I can't say that enough. They are some of the most friendliest people. They'll come talk to you and they'll want to know where you're from and your name. They're just super kind people. Everybody says hello to each other here. And I've never had any issues. And I've even traveled to towns outside of Mexico City. 2-3 hours outside of Mexico City. And in those towns or in between those towns, getting gas or going to Oxxo, which is like a 7-Eleven here, I felt completely safe. The experience has been welcoming and I've always felt secure. Millions of Americans visit Mexico every year. So don't let the media fool you. Mexico is just as safe or even safer than the US. Stop listening to biased, fear-driven stories. Be smart, respectful, and you'll be fine. Take your time exploring the country if you want to come and visit. Trust me, you'll have an amazing experience. Just like visiting any other country, just be aware of your surroundings and be respectful. So that's what I have to say, and I'll see you in the next video.